Hey folks, for many years people have been asking me for tips on how to win the Stranglethorn Fishing Extravaganza, since one of the prizes is the Dread Pirate Heirloom Ring, an important item for World of Warcraft speed leveling. If you've been struggling to win this tournament, then you're in luck, because in this video I'm going to show you a strategy that'll make it nearly impossible for you to lose the Stranglethorn Fishing Extravaganza. Before I discuss the strategy though, I first want to quickly review exactly how this fishing competition works in Dragonflight, as the rules have changed quite a lot over the years. Every Sunday at 2 PM Pacific Standard Time, an NPC named Wriggle Brassbait will send an announcement across Stranglethorn Vale, which signals the start of the fishing tournament. At this point, a world quest will activate within Cape of Stranglethorn and Northern Stranglethorn, and it tasks you with collecting 40 speckled tasty fish. These tasty fish have a chance of being fished up from any pool within Northern or Southern Stranglethorn Vale. Once you've reeled in all 40 tasty fish, you'll want to quickly head to Wriggle Brassbait in Booty Bay in order to complete the world quest. However, only the first 50 players in each region will be able to hand in their tasty fish and collect a prize, so you're gonna have a lot of competition. Now let's talk preparation, since there's still a few things you need to do before the tournament begins. For starters, anyone planning on competing in the Fishing Extravaganza should make sure to train Master Riding, max out their classic fishing skill, and set their Hearthstone to Booty Bay. The first two are pretty straightforward, as more flying speed will allow you to move to new pools more quickly, and having a higher classic fishing skill will increase the chances that you obtain a speckled tasty fish. As for the Hearthstone, having it set to the tavern in Booty Bay will allow you to quickly teleport over to Wriggle Brassbait the moment you obtain all 40 fish. Additionally, I'd highly recommend learning Find Fish, which is taught by the Weatherbeaten Journal. This journal can be looted from the boxes that drop from wreckage pools, and the best place to find these pools are in the wetlands or Northern Stranglethorn Vale. Since this is a bit complicated and it's not the main focus of the video, I've included additional information in the written version of this guide, which can be found linked in the video description below. While those steps are technically the only ones you need in order to win the fishing tournament, there are a few more items and consumables that you can prepare to increase your chances. A really helpful item that should be easy to obtain is Elixir of Water Walking. This will allow you to fish while standing directly on top of water, which will allow you to begin fishing in pools without finding the perfect spot to stand along the shoreline. Shamans and Death Knights can use Water Walking or Path of Frost, respectively, meaning they don't need to buy these elixirs. Another important consumable for the fishing tournament is Captain Rumsey's Lager. These can be picked up for a fairly low cost at the auction house, and drinking them will grant 5 additional fishing skill for 3 minutes. The duration of this buff can stack up to 15 minutes, so I'd recommend chugging 5 of them right as the fishing tournament is about to begin. The final 2 items you'll want to get are the Angler Glove enchant and a pair of item level 50 or lower gloves. This enchant will give you another +5 to your fishing skill, but since it has an eye level requirement, you'll specifically need to use the enchant on those item level 50 gloves. Now, if you're an experienced fisher, you may have noticed that I haven't discussed any of the traditional fishing equipment such as poles, hats, or boots. This is partially because the benefit they grant is extremely minor compared to the time it takes to acquire them, but there is another important reason which I'll discuss shortly when explaining my strategy. That being said, if you are curious to learn more about fishing skill gear, I have a section dedicated to it in the written guide on my website. Finally, it's time to discuss the strategy for the Stranglethorn Fishing Extravaganza, and if you follow these steps, your chances of winning will dramatically increase. The first thing I'll quickly cover is the location in which you should fish, as I'm sure that's the main question on everyone's mind. The short answer is that Lake Nasfaridi and its nearby rivers are the best spots to fish at due to the high density of fishing pools in the area. The long answer is that since everyone already knows this is the best spot, there's a chance it'll be extremely crowded, making it no longer an efficient place to fish at. Shortly before the tournament begins, you should fly around Lake Nasfaridi to check for other players, and if it's mostly empty, you should be fine to fish there. However, if this area is swimming with other players, you should check other parts of Stranglethorn Vale until you find an empty spot. It's always better to fish alone in an empty area than to fight with other players over a desirable spot. That being said, if you use my next trick, this probably won't be an issue, as I was able to fish in Lake Nasfaridi for the entirety of the contest without encountering another player. All I had to do to accomplish this was to turn on Chromie Time. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you probably already know what I'm talking about, but in case you're unaware, Chromie Time is more than just a system for leveling alts. When you enter Chromie Time, you're phased into a completely different version of the world that only low-level characters can enter normally. However, if you use the Party Sync feature, it's possible to phase your main character into Chromie Time, allowing you to fish in Stranglethorn Vale with 0 competition. If you want more information on how to easily utilize Party Sync to phase your main into Chromie Time, I have a separate video linked in the description that discusses all of the important details. While this trick will massively boost your odds of winning the tournament, since you're able to fish with infinitely less competition, it does have a few notable downsides. While your main character is phased into Chromie time, their level and stats will be scaled down to 60. This means that nearby mobs will aggro onto you if you get too close to them, and if you're not careful, this can cause your fishing to be interrupted. The other problem with Chromie time is that, for some reason, it disables all fishing poles, and this includes any active lures. Assuming you had the perfect pole, line, and lure, this amounts to a loss of 31 fishing skill. Although this is a fairly significant bonus, I was still able to fish up a speckled tasty fish on nearly every cast when I was in Chromie time, so the skill difference clearly doesn't matter too much. This is part of the reason why I skimmed over the fishing gear earlier, as poles being disabled removes a massive part of the prep work required for the Stranglethorn Fishing Extravaganza. Although hats, boots, and the Tuskar fishing spear still work, these are much more difficult to acquire despite the fact that they provide a much smaller bonus. If you have them, great, you should use them, but if you don't, it's really not that big of a deal. The final tip I'll give you in this guide is a bit more niche, and that is to participate in the fishing tournament as a High Mountain Tauren. This is because one of their racial abilities, Waste Not Want Not, has a chance to proc additional tasty fish. The chance of this happening isn't incredibly high, so playing as a High Mountain Tauren only gives you a marginal advantage compared to everyone else. That being said, if your only goal is to obtain the Dread Pirate Ring, it may be worth leveling up a High Mountain Tauren alt just to get that small additional edge against the competition.